So, Cal, one of the things that always sort of crop up when we've got a new client, they always seem to ask us, and it's a great question because it always helps us. They always want to know how best to give us feedback once we get into that submittal phase of when we're giving them our work. So, from your perspective, maybe let's start with the content of that first. What, in your opinion, is great feedback in a context perspective from a client?
It's such a difficult question to answer because I think there's so many elements to the feedback. I think from a blend perspective, or from sort of any agency's perspective, you want someone to be quite specific. So if they are able to perhaps provide, and it's also, to be fair, it's also different depending on whether it's marketing feedback or development feedback or feedback on a design that hasn't even started being built for their Shopify store. So it depends what kind of feedback it is. So let's maybe look at an example for marketing feedback. Now, we've had a client give us some feedback before that was absolutely incredible, but this is not the norm and this is not what we expect. So with marketing feedback, we go and we build out email flows with Klaviyo. So there's a strategy, there are conditional splits, there are time delays, there are event triggers. So there are multiple things that go into it. And then within each of those emails, there's content. So they're providing quite a lot of feedback. They may have feedback on the strategy, they may have feedback on time delays, they may have feedback that's specific to a content within a particular email. And one of the best feedback from a client we ever received was they'd actually screenshot the entire email into a Figma file and then annotated sort of each point within the email that they wanted changed. And that was really specific. It gave us a visual. We knew exactly which email they were talking about. But it doesn't, you don't need to be proficient in Figma to give good feedback. So what we sort of ask the clients or our new clients to do when they first join us is, for marketing specific feedback, is if you're giving feedback on a flow, give us the feedback in the relevant Monday pulse. So we will have different flows and different pulses for each of those flows. So provide feedback on your browse abandonment in the pulse for browse abandonment. And then you can be specific within the emails. So you could, I don't know if hopefully you do know this, but each email within Klaviyo actually has a number. So you could have a 1A email and a 1B email and a 1C email. So just telling us which email you're talking about makes it very easy for us to go and implement that. Obviously, if that feedback would pertain to other emails, we'll make sure that that's pulled across through the emails. So you can be very specific. And what it does is it takes out the guesswork from our side. So we don't have to make assumptions. We don't have to come back with clarification questions. It means that the feedback is so clear. We just go and book it in the schedule for someone to jump in on it, and they can go and execute it. We then turn that around much faster as well, because there's no backwards and forwards sort of making sure we're on the same page. It's a little bit different with development and design. So with development, the way that we actually ask for feedback in development is through a tool called Marker.io. And Marker is great because you can have a Chrome extension. And if you're looking at a website, you can just pop out the Chrome extension. You can circle things, you can point arrows to things, and you can say, well, with this particular place on the website, I would expect to see XYZ. I currently see ABC. And that makes it very easy for us to go and change it. For design, that's probably also a little bit different to marketing and development. Often a call for design can be quite good if there's multiple feedback. But again, you can annotate within a Figma design or just give really specific feedback with screenshots or a Loom video. We do at Blend, we love a Loom video. I know you love a Loom video.
Nothing better than a Loom video for feedback.
Yeah.
In terms, let's drill a little bit deeper then, if you don't mind. In terms of like the actual content of those elements, what specifically are you looking for?
When you're talking about elements, what do you mean? Sort of like within the feedback that they're giving, or in the structure of?
Yeah, let's think that we've just sent over a Figma design for a new concept on their redesign website, and the clients had a look at it, and maybe from their perspective it's not quite what they were expecting, and they just maybe the feedback has come back and it's like, this isn't exactly that. This isn't what we were expecting. How would you go back to the client to try and get more information out of them and for them to maybe avoid that situation in the beginning?
Sure. So I think being specific and providing examples of what you would expect to see. So instead of saying, this isn't quite what we expected to see, perhaps providing a screenshot and saying the way that this element appears here, we would have preferred to have it look more like, maybe they want a competitor website, maybe there's sort of another e-commerce store that they've seen that does something really well, and that's what they sort of have in mind for either the design or the functionality. And by being specific and providing examples of what they would like to see, it just helps us align. It removes the margin for misunderstanding so that we can make sure that we're delivering something that the client really wants. At the end of the day, we don't want to frustrate the client. We don't want them to feel like they're banging their head against a wall. So open communication is always great. And if they can tell us sort of what they would like to see with visual examples, it's really, really helpful to the team.
Cool. Let's go back to the Loom video then.
Yeah.
So in terms of a Loom video, I mean, obviously because for us it's super visual.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is trumping pretty much everything else that we would receive?
So a Loom video can be tricky. I mean, I've had Loom videos that are 30 minutes long, and that becomes difficult because you've got to kind of watch the 30-minute Loom video, then schedule someone to actually work on that task and provide a brief, where the brief is kind of 30 minutes long and they probably also need to watch the video. So it's just trying to be efficient and effective with sharing that video. But that being said, not everyone will give you a 30-minute video. And I think just in terms of the visuals, it makes it very specific. So if, for example, someone's working through a preview on their site and they have quite a bit of feedback, they could probably cut that down into like, this Loom video is about feedback on the homepage. These are the things I would expect to see. And that then helps us categorize, well, we need to make some changes to the homepage. Let's get that booked in. If they've then provided feedback in a separate video about the product page, we can then sort of address that all in one go. And I think just, as you say, it's quite a visual thing, and often people could be talking about something and you're like, oh, they must mean this thing. And by the time you've given it back to the client, it's not what they were looking for. So I think just making sure that we're clear and open and honest with communication just really helps us be more efficient, reduces frustration for the client specifically. Because I mean, Blaine, that's our job. Like, we're not going to get frustrated about feedback. That's what we're here to do, is bring clients' ideas to life.
Yeah. So why don't we end this one off with your 3 top tips around a client giving you that specific feedback. Say for instance you were giving this yourself when you were a brand in the past, going, Kelly, these are the 3 things you should try and hit on every single one of these bits of feedback, and then that'll always make it easy for us, for one, but also 2, easy enough for you to get your points across to us as an agency and trying to get that done.
Yeah. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I would say be specific. Provide examples where you can, and be direct. A little compliment goes a long way. It's okay if we've not nailed it entirely, but to encourage motivation for the team or the people that are working on these projects, I think, and I mean, I'm a project manager / operations director / everything. /PA. Exactly. So for me, I don't necessarily need the compliment, but it's so lovely to get just this is great, here's what I would like to see in these particular areas. And I think that really goes a long way with the rest of our team in terms of motivating them. So those would be my top 3.
Yeah, just a little bit of motivation.
Just a little bit of motivation.
It always it's a bit of appreciation, and then yes, we can have the shit afterwards. That's fine.
Absolutely.
No problems. We big and we can understand and we can take it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, don't be afraid essentially to give us that bad feedback.
Absolutely. Feedback is the only way that we can make it better. And if I give marketing as an example, we really want feedback, especially on tone of voice or phrases that we've maybe used within the content of an email. Because if that's not a tone of voice or a phrase that you would use, tell us, and we will take those learnings and apply it to everything else. Because our relationships are never short with clients. It's, generally at least a 12-month relationship. So every bit of feedback we're going to take as learning and apply that for everything that we're doing in the future. So don't feel like you can't give us feedback. You absolutely can.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like you say, it's like if they don't give you that feedback, we don't know that we've done X, Y, or Z wrong, and we need that feedback in order to make sure we don't do it again the next time.
Yeah.
So, awesome advice. Thanks very much, Kel.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Cool.